extraordinary. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to let black people know ain't nothing wrong with black folks. All the time we hear, especially when we talk about black history, how bad it is, about the beat down and all that stuff, right? And how slavery was so cruel. And it was. And I'd be the first to admit it. From what all the little research I've done, it was not good. But black folks fought back though. And we did a lot of things to escape that situation. Never did like it. But one of the other things that we don't talk about is when we talk about black history, a lot of times we don't talk about the success in black people and the achievements of black folks. There were slaves who went to college. People say, well, how is that possible? There were 3 HBCUs open before slavery ended. Cheney was opened in 1837. It wasn't but black folks going to Cheney. Now, true enough, they might not have been slaves at the time, but they could have been slaves before they got there. There was Lincoln and Wilberforce and Central State. There was Oberlin College in Ohio. They were accepting black people. Marcus Garvey got his PhD from Harvard. And so we don't think about this. Now, first of all, I want to say, how did black people learn how to read and write? Because it was vicious. They didn't want you to do it. They figured if you learn how to read and write, first of all, you could send a note to somebody on how to escape. Because we was always thinking about ways to escape. Some people thought it was okay, you know, being in that institution, but I'm sure the most of them didn't like it. Especially when they could send you away further down south or something like that. Because if you was in South Carolina, you was in Texas, you couldn't run to Detroit. It was too far to go. So what you had to do was run to Florida. Florida had ways that people could be free. Or you could run to Kansas and go in that territory. And even if you got to Detroit, this wasn't enough because there were people coming up here looking for you. So then you had to go across the river and get to Canada. Harriet Tubman, when she escaped, she went all the way past Buffalo into a town called St. Catherine, Canada. They had to take a boat. There was no bridges or nothing like that, but no cars. They had to find a boat to get over there. And when I said something earlier, I said that black people ain't nothing wrong with us. Let me tell you how well we network. It took other black people to figure out a way for you to get your freedom. If we didn't like each other, we wouldn't have put our life on the line for somebody else. You couldn't escape by yourself. You didn't know where to go. Black women was braiding in other black women's hair the escape route. That's where the escape route was. Then they would put little beads and food in the hair so that you could have something, little morsels to eat along the way. Don't let them tell you something wrong with black people. I don't buy into that. And then you had people that was up north that worked in those little ships, the Confederate people. They would come down south, and then they would get messages to you. So-and-so up north is looking for you. Want to know how you're doing. This is a good time to escape. Speaking of escape, there was one black guy who he worked on a Confederate boat. They could make you do whatever they wanted to make you do. He was working on the boat. The white guys would get off the boat right before the dock, go in the woods and play or whatever they did. My man said, next time they do that, we leave. This guy stole the boat. He carjacked the boat. His name is Robert Smalls. And let me tell you, but just him getting on the boat and getting away wasn't enough. He had to be smart enough to how to sail the water, because he had to go through the Confederate place to get up. So he put on the captain's thing, he did the signals and stuff like that, everything's good, and he sailed and he got to Philadelphia. They looked up, it was black people on the boat. He said, hey, what's going on? He said, man, we stole that boat. We want y'all to have it, just let us be free. Then my man was so bad, he went back to South Carolina after the slavery ended and became a politician and worked in the school system. Going back to that school thing, how did black people learn how to read and write? If you knew a word, I'd ask you, what do you know? you would tell me, I know, because you was getting it out of the Bible. They let you read the Bible. You look at it, the word said, and, okay, and, that's and. They, that's they. That, and so on, and they was teaching each other. And then there was some white people who had a little compassion for black folks. I always say this, especially when there's somebody white in the audience, make them feel better. Man, it was white people that helped us too. They helped in the Underground Railroad. When that Civil War began, it was 750,000 people on both sides, and between the two sides fighting. Wasn't no black people. Then was white people shooting at other white people to help black people be free. And losing their life. And in that Civil War thing, you shot with a pellet gun. The pellet wasn't but this big. It wasn't no M16, you know, I mean, it was pellet guns. So he shoot me in the leg. I'm laying down on the ground. Ain't nobody coming to get me. I died from the infection of the pellet. So there was a lot of people that died. It wasn't until later on that Frederick Douglass talked Abraham Lincoln letting them brothers get into the work in the troops. The brothers took their hat, turned aside, said, let's go. And the war ended soon after that. But before that, it was white people killing white people. Some of them just didn't believe in that institution. And there were white people that were teaching some black people how to read and write. That's what happened with Frederick Douglass. The mistress of the house, the enslaver's wife, girlfriend, whatever, taught Frederick how to read. Because Frederick used to play with the other kids. He was in Maryland. Wasn't such a bad territory, let's say. So Frederick learned how to read and write. He said, dang, I really like this. Now he's going with the other white kids saying, hey, let me read your book, let me do this. And then he became an orator like he was. That's what made Frederick Douglass special. And I know I'm jumping around, but I'm getting all this off that's on my mind. People ask me, or people wonder, how did Frederick Douglass make a living? Because you gotta, ain't nobody giving you nothing for free. You still gotta make a living. Might not have been but a nickel, a dime, but you gotta come up with a nickel, a dime to buy something from the store. Y'all know Frederick Douglass had a newspaper, right? The North Star. One of the first black newspapers. You know what he did? He wasn't giving it away free. It cost a nickel. That's how he made his money. And if you ever go to Washington, D.C., Frederick Douglass got one of the biggest houses in that area called the Anacostia District. It's just across the river. It's on a hill. And if you look at it, you go to it, it's a historic site. You look down on it, and he looks right at the Capitol. Rich guy. So we learned how to read and write. There was one black guy who wanted other black people to learn how to read and write so bad that he somehow got a boat. And he's sailing up the river in Mississippi. And then what he would do is tell the slaves, come on, get on my boat. In the middle of the night, we're going to sail down and I'm going to teach you while we're sailing. He called it the Floating Freedom School. There was a black guy, and the school is still operating today. His name is Dr. Lawrence Jones. He was a PhD. This is the early 1900s. Dr. Lawrence Jones said, I want to start a school. He started a boarding school. You ever heard of the Pineywood Boarding School? That's him. In the heart of Mississippi. But through it all, God got you in some respects, right? When you do good. So then one day, the white people come to Lawrence Jones and said, man, we're going to lynch you. We don't want you teaching them black people. Lawrence Jones was so smooth, this is what the rumor goes, he talked him into saving his life and contributing to the school. So now we learn how to read and write. And there were white schools, there were white cities and stuff like that that accepted black people because they knew that. And see, black people wanted to learn how to read and write because signing your X, you don't know what you're signing. So now you got to figure it out. You want to communicate. You'll put your life on the line to learn how to read and write. And many of them did. Because again, if they figured you'd learn how to read and write, you could figure a way out. Because we always try to figure out a way out. I tell you a couple ways out. There was a black guy who, he could read and write evidently. He saw his family being shipped further south. He said, oh man, I can't take this no more. I had enough of this. My man built a box big enough for him to fit in. And this is where the reading right came in. He wrote on the top of the box, this side up. That was smart. Then he shipped the box on a boat to go to Philadelphia. Because see, when you look at it, Philadelphia is kind of one of the first coasts off the water, off the Atlantic coast. He get in the box, he tie it down. He had help, tie it down, what have you. He gets on the boat. There's a story that at one moment they turned the box upside down. Blood gushing to his head. He almost about to die. I told you about that God, though. That God intervened. God made somebody turn the box upside down, and he survived. He got to Philadelphia, and he got the nickname Henry Box Brown. So now he in Philadelphia, and he kind of big mouth, I guess, and he goes around telling people what he did. You know, the white folks get mad at him, tell the people down south, they come looking for him. He got to go to Canada. See, because all slavery was is what it is now back then. You all would not have stayed still and said, I don't want to learn how to read and write. I want something for myself. I want something for my family. You wouldn't have done that. Then you would have figured out, I got to have some money too. Because people just wasn't giving away stuff for free. So just think of yourself now back then. How tenacious would you have been? Now, ain't nothing you can do about the institution, but you got to work within those confines. And that's what they figured out a way to do. There's all kind of escape ways. There was one way where the guy, oh, how about this? You could be enslaved and your wife or your husband be a slave and live in the same house. You got papers saying you free, and your husband and your wife don't. So you got to go find you a job, and they got their job. There were stories like that. There were slaves who sued for their freedom. They did hear some stories about some legal things that was going on, and they sued in court. It's called freedom lawsuits. So it ain't just gray area. It ain't just black and white of how this thing went down. It's all kind of dynamics to it. There's one that I'm getting ready to go to in Mount Bayou, Mississippi. I'm going in July. I'm having a little festival there. Let me also tell you, I have my own podcast. I'm into this Black history thing. And my podcast is called Strong Inspiration. I interview people around the world for them to tell Black history stories. I do it via Zoom. I interviewed a guy who's out of Mount Bayou, Mississippi. The story about Mount Bayou is the guy who was the enslaver was a big dude, had a lot of slaves, what have you. But he was kind of, if you want to say a gentle guy, let's call it that. You know, he still might have mistreated some folks, and you ain't had your freedom. But nonetheless, I'm going to try to give you the reason why I say that. He would allow them to learn how to read and write. He would allow them to learn how to have businesses and have families. Because he figured if he treated you a little bit better, you would tend to the soil and all that other stuff, and maybe not escape. Maybe kind of a smart way of going about it. Well, things is working out pretty good. He dies. Now he wheels all his slaves to his brother. His brother was the worst of them. His brother was the head of the Confederacy. So they went from, not so bad to the brother. So then now slavery ends, and all of them, because they know how, they got smarts, they've been reading and writing and running their own community, they start, and they move off the plantation and they move to a town, they incorporate the town called Mount Bayou, Mississippi. It's still operating today. A little small town, probably about 30 miles. And it's thriving. Tulsa, Oklahoma was not the first Black Wall Street. It's just the one that they made the movies about, the one we hear about. Durham, North Carolina had their own Black Wall Street. And our Black Wall Street is right, you know where it is, right over the way, called Black Mountain. That was our Black Wall Street. Because when black folks came together, they built their own districts. How you gonna tell me I can't come in the front door, I can't try on the clothes, If I touch it, I gotta pay for it, or you're gonna think I'm trying to steal it. You know, all them restrictions. I can't come in the front door of your restaurant. You spitting in my food and all that other stuff. I tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm smart enough. I'm gonna start my own. And that's what we did. You can't hold us back. We're gonna figure out a way. And that's what they did back then. And they figured out all kind of ways. How about this? This was a unique escape. There was a situation where the husband and wife, they were married, both slaves. Now she looked fair-skinned, looked like she was white. He was dark-skinned, the guy. Helen and Henry Kraft is the name. So they said, I'll tell you what we're gonna do. We're going to dress you up like my slave, and I'm gonna act like, and I'm gonna look like I'm the white one. Because did y'all know that a slave, that an enslaver could let their slave travel up north without them? Now that blew my mind. You done let me go up north. You think I'm coming back? You better, because I got your family. You better come back, because I got your family. I'll let you go, but I got your family. And with that fear. So this guy, Helen, and his wife, Helen and her husband, they looked like she was taking her slave up north. This is my property. I can do what I want with her. They got on the boat, almost got caught, and they made it to freedom. There's a lot of those kind of stories of how people escape. You know, just in the middle of the night. There were some people who escaped so bad they moved to the swamps, and then they said, "You come up in here, we're gonna shoot back." They call them maroons. Just think about it. You on the island of Jamaica, where you run to? You're on the island of Jamaica. All of it is captured on this one piece of land. So you know, whether one side of the island to the other, you run up in the woods. They got maroon communities in Jamaica. And it's a tourist attraction. You ever go down there? Just ask them to take me to the maroon community. They told them, like, you come up here, it's not gonna be good. There's Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas. Y'all knew that, right? Kansas City, Missouri is over here, Kansas City, Kansas is over here. Now, Missouri is a slave state. Ain't but a little bit of body of water that separates. If you could get over there, you're in a free territory. That don't mean he can't come over there looking for you, but still, you're in a free territory. There's a township over in Kansas City, Kansas called Quindaro. I interviewed somebody from the Quindaro. His great-great-grandfather escaped. And when he got over there, he told the white man, you come looking for me, I'm gonna die. I ain't going back. I'm shooting, I got a gun. You gotta let it go. He ended up opening up a business over there.
Family, that is the Black History presentation here at St. Patrick's Senior Center. I hope you enjoyed this. Leave me a comment. Thank you for tuning in. And hey, join me next time for a positive pause with Paula. Thank you.